Full retirement age isn't just a number, it's a planning milestone that affects your benefit, spousal and survivor benefits, as well as your general retirement income strategy. But most people don't understand what happens at your full retirement age, or FRA. It's especially confusing because you can start taking retirement income as early as age 62 or as late as age 70. Other benefits, like survivor benefits, can start even earlier. So what's the deal with FRA? Several important things happen at your full retirement age, whether we're talking about your benefit or benefits for survivors or spouses. It's like a hub out of which a bunch of different spokes go radiating into your retirement and finances. So briefly, when is FRA? For most people approaching retirement these days, it's age 67. FRA is based on your year of birth. For those born in 1960 or later, it's age 67. Born in 1959, it's 66 and 10 months. And anybody born before then is already age 67, but it might be helpful to know when your FRA was. FRA is important because various benefits are based on your monthly benefit at your FRA. In other words, that's the amount you would get if you claimed exactly when you reach full retirement age. That amount is also known as your primary insurance amount, or PIA, and I'll be using those terms interchangeably. The PIA, or the amount you would get at FRA. Without that number, you can't get other numbers that are important for your benefits. For example, the amount you'll get at any given age is based on what you would have gotten at FRA. Let's say you plan to start Social Security at age 70. How much will you get? To calculate that answer, you would need to know the PIA because your age 70 benefit is your full retirement age benefit plus 8% per year. And if you're married, benefits for a spouse or a survivor can also be based on that anchor point of the FRA. Really, you could argue that you never need to know your PIA. After all, your Social Security statement tells you what you can get at different ages, so you could just pick an age and an amount that works for you. That's fair. But the amount you would get at FRA is still critical. I always want that number from clients, even if they've already told me what they can get at 62 or 70 whenever they're thinking of claiming, because that PIA is what the Social Security Administration is actually using for a lot of other things. Likewise, your financial planning software might want your FRA benefit because it's going to make the calculations as accurate as possible. The basic explanation of full retirement age is that's when you can get unreduced retirement income benefits. There can also be reductions to spousal and survivor benefits as well. A benefit can be reduced in at least two ways. Number one is claiming early, and number two is earning too much. There can be other reductions as well as situations that prevent reductions, so you want to make sure and verify all of this with a Social Security expert and the Social Security Administration. That's especially true if there are other people in your household besides a basic single person or married couple, or if a disability exists. Let's quickly go over the earnings test. When you claim before FRA, you're subject to the earnings test. In other words, if you make more than a certain amount from your work, then your Social Security benefit will be reduced. You can earn as much as you want and get full unreduced benefits once you're at your full retirement age or later. But before then, Social Security will withhold $1 for every $2 you earn above the earnings limit. Except in the year you turn full retirement age, then it's $1 for every $3 above a different, higher limit. And your first year of retirement might be different again. So clear as mud, right? That's important to know because you might end up with less cash flow than you expected if you claim before full retirement age and you keep working. In some cases, your earnings are so high that it completely wipes out your Social Security benefit until you reach full retirement age or stop working. Fortunately, the Social Security Administration provides calculators that can help you figure all of this out. Financial planning software can also adjust for the earnings test. The good news is that money's not gone forever. You'll eventually get a bigger payment, which, if you live long enough, should make up for everything that was withheld before. Now on to early claiming. Your age is one of the most important factors when it comes to your Social Security income. That's obvious when you look at your Social Security statement, but it's also important for spousal benefits, survivor benefits, and more. Again, the impact on your own benefit might seem irrelevant. If you're happy with whatever you'll get from early claiming, then that's great. You can start getting those payments a few months or years early. As long as you understand the trade-offs, no problem. Where it's less obvious is spousal and survivor benefits. People always assume that they'll automatically get half of a higher earning spouse's Social Security payment. That's occasionally true, but you might be surprised at how it really works. You can get up to half of your spouse's PIA if and only if you meet certain requirements. We're talking about getting half of that higher earner's benefit at their full retirement age, and that does not include any increases they might get from delaying claiming after their full retirement age. I've got a whole separate video on that, so keep an eye out. In particular, you need to know that lower earner, or a spouse who never worked outside of the home, you won't get that 50% if that person starts taking any retirement income before their full retirement age. This is confusing because sometimes a lower earning spouse has their own benefit, and then they also get a spousal top-off that could bring them up to half of the higher earner's PIA. That top-off is also known as an offset or an excess, but I think the term top-off describes it nicely. You always hear people say they're going to claim early with a reduced benefit and then switch to a spousal benefit, which is half of their higher earning spouse's full retirement age amount. Unfortunately, that's impossible. It's not how it works. When you claim early, even if you're starting with only your own benefit, you get a permanent reduction to your base benefit. Any spousal top-off will go on top of that permanently reduced base, and so you just won't ever get up to 50% of the other person's PIA, at least not while both of you are still alive. Then we have the question of whether or not your spousal top-off is reduced. Without getting into the details of that calculation, your spousal top-off is based on your age when you become eligible for that benefit. If that happens before your FRA, then the spousal top-off is reduced. So you could potentially have two reductions. Your own benefit could be reduced, plus the spousal top-off could also be reduced. That said, it's also possible to just have your own base benefit reduced while the spousal top-off is unreduced. That can happen if the lower earner claims early, but the higher earner doesn't claim and unlock the spousal benefit until after that lower earner reaches their full retirement age. Maybe a number of years pass, or maybe the lower earner is older than the higher earner. Again, the total amount that comes in for that person will be less than half of the higher earner's PIA, but the spousal top-off might not be reduced. It's just that base benefit that is reduced. So what can you do about a reduced benefit? If you claimed early and you regret it, then it's possible to temporarily pause your benefit and let it grow. But that option is only available after you reach, you guessed it, full retirement age. There may also be an option to undo or withdraw your application within 12 months of claiming, even if you're younger than FRA. But the clock is ticking on that one, and you need to repay all the benefits you got before to make it work. When you suspend, there's nothing to repay, and other benefits on your record, like spousal benefits, will stop. Then your monthly benefit will increase by 8% per year because you're beyond your full retirement age. Technically, those increases come monthly, but they add up to 8% over 12 months. In addition to getting a bigger payment, suspending can be helpful if you want to use tax planning strategies like Roth conversions, or maybe you want to spend down some pre-tax retirement accounts to manage your RMDs out in the future. Back to the topic of married couples, there are at least two more ways that FRA is important. Number one is getting a full survivor benefit. Number two is the age at which somebody dies or claims before death. When somebody dies, their spouse typically gets the bigger of any Social Security payments coming into the household. For example, assume that your payment is $3,000 and your spouse is getting $2,000 a month. If you die first, your spouse could get $3,000 per month because that's the biggest benefit, but they would not get both payments for a total of $5,000 a month. However, to get the full amount, the surviving spouse must be at their full retirement age. And just to keep you on your toes, the FRA for survivor benefits can be different from the FRA for retirement income, although they're usually pretty close. If the FRA for survivor benefits is 67, but you take benefits before then, you'll get a permanently reduced survivor benefit, not the full $3,000 in this example. That might be fine, especially because in a survivorship situation, you can switch benefits. Remember, there's no switching in a basic case where you and your spouse are both alive. But when somebody dies, you have more options. It might make sense to take a survivor benefit or your own benefit early and then switch to the other benefit later. There's also a wrinkle known as the widow's limit that might point toward taking survivor benefits earlier than FRA, but that's another topic. Now let's explore why the decedent's age can also be important. In general, a survivor gets whatever the deceased was getting or was entitled to receive at the time of their death. If the deceased was delaying their benefits, then they were getting delayed retirement credits, or DRCs, which would add up to a bigger monthly payment than their standard PIA. The survivor will get those delayed retirement credits as if the deceased claimed just before dying. That's why it's often a good idea to remember survivorship planning whenever you're deciding when to take benefits. And if the deceased claimed early, then they will have a reduced benefit, which the survivor likewise would take over if that benefit is bigger than their own benefit. However, there are some wrinkles in here, as with anything related to Social Security. But what happens if somebody dies before their FRA and they never claimed? What will the survivor get? The survivor could generally get whatever the deceased would have gotten at their full retirement age. But again, that payment might be reduced if they start taking the survivor benefit before their full retirement age for survivor benefits. So you can see why FRA is so important and why it's really helpful to know what your PIA is. But that's not the only important piece of retirement planning. You need to be mindful of taxes and risk and other factors besides just what happens at full retirement age. While we're on that topic of retirement age, there are a number of other ages you need to know about, like 50, 55, 63, and many more. The video popping up now walks through each of those ages and why they're so important. Thanks for watching and enjoy the next video.